Hello, everybody, and welcome to Metaphysical Insights. I'm your host, William Becker, and my very special guest today is Liam Shand from Highland Paranormal. I can't say enough positive about this man. He's a wonderful human being, and I'm fortunate to say a good friend, and he really knows his stuff. Both in the paranormal, but also the history and the myth and lore of Scotland and metaphysics and going off in some of the other directions. And we'll see where we go today. So, Liam, welcome, and I'm so glad you're here.
Evening, or should I say good afternoon? I'm
Yeah.
blushing already for that. That what an intro. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. It's earned. I feel it's heartfelt. I
No pressure.
Oh, I know you. I know you. You'll do. You've been on enough. I'm sorry, folks. Language in my brain today, it's a little iffy. It's beginning to look like. So you get what you get. But Liam's been on several times, and he's always a star. So, oh, how's everything been going for you? How's life?
Very busy. We've had a really busy year with the group. We've just done our 200th investigation. So it's taken us 14 years to get there, but we did that on Monday evening, which was nice to finally get it done. We were supposed to do one a couple of weeks ago, which would have been the 200th. It was cancelled at the last minute.
Okay.
So it was really good to get out and get that one done. So yeah, it was 200 done, 201 tomorrow.
Congratulations.
Thank
That's
you.
exciting. Now, my understanding is what you did is a private one, so you can't tell me anything about it on the air.
Can't really tell you much. No, it was. I probably can. It was a pub in
Okay.
Inverness, and I can't say any more than that.
Okay.
But it was an interesting evening. Lot of EMF hits
Excellent.
um, and whatnot in the location and apparent intelligent responses. So yeah, a good evening.
That sounds great. And if my memory of Scottish pubs is from early days, my first trip into Ireland are correct. Scottish pubs are always interesting
Yeah,
and
they are.
a little crazy.
Yeah, not for all sorts of spirits, shall we say?
Yes, yes, and all sorts of personalities. It's great.
Yeah.
Um, 1984 was a very interesting year over there. It was good, but yeah. Well, okay, you've got one tomorrow. Is that a private one too?
It's a private one, yeah. It's a biggie. It's a big location, but yeah, it's private at the moment, unless
Okay.
they tell us we can tell folk. So at the moment we can't.
Okay, that makes sense. I really appreciate the integrity you and your group have. Um, that's so important, and it's not always there. Not everybody has that, and I don't know where to begin exactly. We want to make sure people have access, but I'd like to hear about some of the things that you've been working on, paranormal, metaphysical, um, lately, about the events around Halloween. I never say shaman. Shaham? Is that? I never say it right.
Some hey, I'll get it wrong as well. You see?
Okay, Sameh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. I don't try to be ignorant and flippant. It's just I'm lucky to say my own name right these days. But I would love to hear more about all of this. We haven't had a chance to just sit down and talk much for a while. So, whatever you feel like sharing about what it is over there, what it means over there, your own experiences and the people with you, anything you feel comfortable
Yeah.
about. I don't want to probe too privately.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously Halloween in Ireland and Scotland goes back a very, very long time. And while today Halloween's become very commercialized and, if I dare say, Americanized,
Right.
um, with the pumpkins, when I was growing up, it was a turnip, a neep lantern.
Oh, really?
And my dad every year would carve out a turnip lantern. Now, you've got to be one brave soul to carve a turnip. I'm quite sure a few fingers were lost by many over the years. I did do one a couple of years ago, and it was hard work. So I can totally understand why people do pumpkins because they're a lot easier. But we would go. We didn't go trick or treating when I was a child. We went guising,
Guising?
and guising is what we would go. And we would go round the doors, but we would have to tell a joke or sing a song to get a treat. Um, and that's basically when I was growing up. You would do that. It's more developed now into the kind of
Oh,
trick or treating. I'm just noticing that Lawrence has mentioned there is an echo. So
yeah. And
apologies.
people, we spent a half an hour trying to get rid of the echo. I really, I apologize for it. Um, and I'm glad it's not too annoying, Lawrence. Um, but I apologize. We've done everything we could do to get rid of it. So,
Yeah, we're not sure what's causing it.
no.
It wasn't there at the start.
No, it wasn't. When I couldn't hear him, there was no echo. As soon as I could hear him, there's an echo. Um, so I don't get it. But anyway, I didn't mean
No, that's fine.
to
It's
interrupt.
so yeah. So I mean, obviously, Halloween is where the veil. The belief is the veil is at the thinnest between
Hmm.
our life and the afterlife, and certainly activity seems to ramp up in a lot
Okay.
of places around this time. It's always a busy period for the group. This
Hmm.
year's been no different. So we're being doing events. We did some filming with BBC Social, so that's the BBC's internet arm. So we visited Strathpeffer Pavilion, which I know I've spoken about before.
Hmm.
So that was fun. And we've also done. We were back at Pool House in Pool U.
Okay.
Hi Rita. And where else were I? Castle Fraser. How could I forget about Castle Fraser in Aberdeenshire? So we went to Castle Fraser again. It was brilliant. That's 2 years in a row we've been there. Um, got some pretty interesting activity there in various different rooms. And yeah, since I spoke to you last as well, we've now got a Gaelic investigator on the team.
Fantastic.
So Hannah has joined us. She's a very talented lady. Not only is she a native Gaelic speaker, she's psychic and she does psychic art.
Wow.
So we've had some really good images from Pool House and Castle Fraser that she's sketched. We've put them up on our Facebook page.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's been really, really full on. We've had private stuff in between as well. As I said, we've still got a couple of private cases this year to do.
Okay.
Um, I think I'm not been since I was kind of asked by the BBC as well to go on radio and TV and talk a bit. So that was a bit scary, but we got through it. Del Toro, the horror director writer, he was staying in Aberdeenshire. He was experiencing various things in his hotel, and they needed somebody to speak about it. They couldn't get an expert, so they got me.
They got the right person.
Yeah.
Um, no, are all of those, are there links to all of those on your website or Facebook page?
Facebook page has got as much as we can. We've linked from Facebook. So and from our website as well. Actually, you can see the BBC social. um,
Okay.
segment. As I said as well, it's on there. And for American viewers, that one's very interesting because actually that was a U.S. naval hospital in World War One.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Lawrence, could you do me a favor? I'm sorry, I'm going to put you to work. Could you in the comments put in the web address for your web page and also your Facebook page for the team, please? Um, Thank you. Um, if that's not, if you don't have any way of doing that much right now, let us know. But I'd like to get that information out to everybody.
Yep, she's
Thank
going to do
you
that.
very
Thank
much.
you.
She's very sweet and very kind.
Yep, very helpful. And she's
Yes.
kind of the, she calls herself the transparent member of the group because, but she's not. She's very important. She's normally behind the camera, documenting everything as we go along, and that's really key. So while you maybe don't see her in front of the camera very often, um, she's always there filming, photographing, doing the
And she's
audio.
and she knows what she's doing with filming
Oh
and
yeah, yeah, yeah,
photographing.
yeah.
The
It's a
quality of
huge,
her
huge
work is
help.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a huge help.
Yeah.
And also we've had a few opportunities for her to do some calling out in French.
Oh,
So
good.
Lawrence is French for those who don't know. So we've done this year. We were lucky enough twice to do the Mary Queen of Scots exhibition, where they actually had several items that they believed belonged to Mary, and we were invited to go in with our equipment and see what we picked up. We did pick some stuff up. And as St. Lawrence, obviously, Mary's upbringing was in France. She spoke
Right.
French, so we've done some calling out there. And we've also, if you actually go back into Scottish history, at a place called Rake Castle, it was originally for Norman knights. And again, they spoke a form of French. So
Right.
again, we've had her do calling out in French there as well. So it's really, really interesting, and some of the responses that we get. The Mary Queen of Scots exhibition was really interesting in the way, especially for females who
Okay.
seemed to be. It was very emotional for them to walk through the exhibition, and quite a few, even when we were there, were reduced to tears on both occasions. But what we were told by the organisers is that through the whole year, there's been a lot of people get to the end of it and they are in tears.
It makes sense. When you look at her life and what she went through, the turmoil, the different boyfriends and husbands, the reactions, the murders of some, her own not particularly happy ending. Um, I can see where that immense sorrow would be so ingrained in her that it would be part of everything that she had touched.
Yeah, I mean, she really was used by many,
Yes.
and yeah, such a tragic ending.
Yeah. And France and Scotland teamed up together so many times against the British, the English.
Yeah, the
And
old alliance.
yeah. And so I would think all over the country you would have sites where French would come in handy.
Yeah, it's funny enough though. At Rake Castle, the De Rates actually fought for Edward the First.
Oh, well, were they part of William the Conqueror's Normans then?
They possibly could be, but they definitely, the De Rate that fought in the Scottish Wars of Independence, he fought for Edward.
Okay.
However, he was pardoned by Robert the Bruce,
Oh,
and the belief was that he was pardoned because the Bruce knew he needed strong individuals to keep control of areas. So
okay.
he basically said, right, if you're willing to work for me now, you're fine. You can carry on. You can live in your castle and just collect taxes or whatever.
Yeah, abuse the peasants and have a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, do you get a chance to do much work on peasant sites where
Um,
villages, houses would have been, things like that?
we done a really interesting one last year. It's a place called Bad Bay, and it was a clearance village. So the Highland clearances probably took place late 17th, 18th, 1800s.
Hmm.
Um, and that was basically when rich landowners moved people off the land for sheep.
Right.
And it was quite vicious. Some people were burnt out of their homes. Many people actually emigrated to places like America and Canada.
Right.
They were just forced out.
Hmm.
Um, but Bad Bay was a village that was set up for five different kind of areas, communities, and they were sent there. And it's basically on a hillside that goes down to the North Sea.
Okay.
So it was a complete change of climate. What the landowners were basically saying is, well, you can't do sheep farming anymore, but you can go fishing.
Okay.
We're told that the weather was so bad in the winter that they used to tie children up to posts so they weren't blown away.
I believe it.
Yeah.
Um,
And what's
you
there now?
told where they were, and I thought, oh my God, all you've got there is wind and sleet and freezing rain, and I mean, oh,
Yeah.
I get cold thinking about it. I'm sorry, I interrupted
No,
you.
no, no. Sorry, it's okay. So we went there. We did a kind of small investigation there. We use the dowsing rods a lot, as you know, and
Hmm.
Claire and our team became very emotional to the point where she actually was crying with the emotions that were coming through, and it seemed to be an older gentleman who had been trying to look after his family, and
Okay.
even when he passed, he was still there trying to take care of his family. Um, all that's left of Bad Bay is kind of ruins. You would struggle apart from one to go, yeah, that was a house.
Okay.
But it's a very somber place. But maybe it's that way because we know what happened there.
Right.
Yeah, yeah,
No, that would
uh,
make sense.
yeah. So
I'd
that's
like to go there and feel it.
that's probably the when you go down that route of the poor kind of people, because yeah, sure enough, I'm pretty sure we've been in buildings in Inverness that at one point or the previous house there or building there would have been occupied by poorer folk, because Inverness itself, wasn't a particularly rich area until the railways arrived.
Right. Yes, that makes sense. And for so much of the history of Europe, I mean, you had the aristocracy and some other landlords. Eventually, you had the middle class, which isn't what we think of as middle class now. They sometimes were richer than the aristocracy, but they owned business.
Hmm.
And then you had various degrees of poverty pretty much underneath that. Some variation and a few people that were more comfortable. I mean, not everybody was destitute, but my guess is probably at least half of the people of, Scotland and England would have been below what we'd call a poverty level, as food insecurity, shelter issues, everything else.
Yeah, I mean,
My,
well, the Highlands especially. I mean, if you look at the time of the 1745 rising, at that point there was
mhm,
still a lot of poverty, while the kind of central belt of Scotland, the Edinburgh and more Edinburgh than Glasgow at that point in time, actually Edinburgh had modernized and embraced the bigger world. The Highlands was still kind of, well, it was remote. It was hard to get to,
Right.
and the clan system was very much in place. And there was a pecking order there,
Hmm.
and obviously again you had the clan chief. He lived very well. Um, he did, however, allow the poorer folk to live on the land and make a living from the land.
Good.
But when the clan chief asked you to do something, you had to do it.
Right. Right. And that included pay him part of your produce and taxes and lend your body and arms in time of war.
Yes.
And it's a time period I would like to, and I do when I travel, I visit from my feet planted here and look backwards. It's not one I would want to physically spend much time in,
No.
um, even
We
as a leader, because the leaders all had to be fearing their life because somebody else wanted to take their job.
Yeah. I mean, Scottish history is just full of backstabbing and power struggles, and even within families, brothers murdering brothers, and fathers and brothers, and yeah, just crazy. Um, what I also found interesting this year is we had a couple of ladies over from America who were mediums who'd
Okay.
been previously at Gettysburg,
Oh, okay.
and we took them to Culloden battlefield. And I thought, they'll probably pick up quite similar energies, but they actually said no, the energies at Culloden were much stronger than Gettysburg, which I did find surprising, I'll be honest. But I did find that fascinating that they both felt that.
I'm not surprised, actually. I've been to both. Gettysburg as a teenager and not practicing in the mediumship. Um, Culloden in '84 as an adult, but not as focused on what I do now at the time I was there. But you can feel so much more. Gettysburg was a period of a few days. Culloden was decades or years. I mean, 'cause you have the one battle, but you have so much there underneath that battle. I think amplifies and makes a difference.
Yeah.
If I have the history correct.
Mm. Yeah, well, I mean, Culloden was a slaughter. It was over in less than an hour.
Hmm.
The Jacobite army were basically just slaughtered because of poor military decisions.
Hmm.
But what followed Culloden was, for want of a better term, genocide.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I'm not going to get into politics, but it's one of those things that all periods of history seem to have. Um, there's always you get emotional rampages or the destruction of people's land wanting to take it over, and it's always been that way, and it doesn't make it any easier. Um, but when you look back through history, look how many times
Hmm.
it's happened, and all over the world. And the human race is capable of some pretty horrific things. And I think usually for greed, basically out of fear of not having enough or not being able to survive. I don't know. But uh, no, you give tours over there.
Yeah, we do. We do what we call the ghost walk,
And
which takes in 3 graveyards,
okay.
um, plus a walk along the River Ness. And we talk not just about ghosts. We talk about the witch trials in Inverness. We talk about the day a gentleman saw the devil in a fiery coach riding out of a woodland in Inverness, and the fairies, of course, as well.
Uh huh.
So there's a good mix. Lots of Jacobite history in there because Inverness was at the centre. 6 miles from Culloden battlefield, it was where the Jacobites marched to go to Culloden, and it's where the government came straight after Culloden. So there's a lot of history there.
Yeah. When was Inverness founded?
Oh, now you're asking.
Sorry about that.
Well, off the top of my head, I don't know. We know that there was a Pictish settlement in around 500 AD,
Okay.
definitely. You can still see the earthworks of the Pictish fort, which sits on a hill above Inverness. So we know at that point, um, yeah, there was a settlement here.
Hmm.
By 565 AD, Saint Columba turns up. He
Right.
converts the Picts to Christianity on a site in Inverness.
That takes
Um,
some doing.
yeah. At the same point in time, we have the first sighting of the Loch Ness monster.
Really?
Yeah. So Saint Columba, while he's converting the Picts, a place called St Michael's Mound, which is now where the old High Church in Inverness stands,
Okay.
one of his followers is grabbed by a sea serpent in the river below. But Saint Columba banishes the sea monster to Loch Ness.
That's how it got there.
Yeah.
Now, I have a question. And Lawrence just put up a big historic piece. Um, and can you see it, Liam?
Yeah, yeah, I can see it, yeah.
Okay, and some more. And so we can put as much of that in as you want to with that. But my question is, it's always convenient when somebody comes in to convert people, and then all of a sudden, deadly, scary monsters show up and are put in rivers or lakes or whatever. Could that have been a control mechanism? Because the whole
Possibly. I
creation.
mean, the other thing to remember is that I can't remember, it was 100 years or 200 before actually St. Columba's story was written down. So it wasn't written down on the day or within the months that followed. It was quite a bit on.
Okay.
So we do know that monks at the time liked to exaggerate a bit.
Yeah.
Um, so I think it was probably more down to the saint-like superhero tale they wanted to tell. You know,
Okay.
there's loads of stories about saints tackling monsters, whether it's sea serpents or dragons or whatever. You know,
Right.
so I think possibly yeah, it could be that. But as I am a firm believer in Nessie, I like to think maybe there's a bit of truth in it.
Well, I'm really glad that you're a firm believer in Nessie. My ex swore that he saw her while he was painting from
Hmm.
one of the usual outcroppings where people paint and supposedly seen her. Now, Andrew was really good at pulling my leg sometimes. So, but he swore it was true. And I choose to believe him. I have yet to see her myself, but I certainly think it's possible that there's something there. I mean, that lock is so incredible, and the connection to the sea, it's so deep. I mean, it's only been recently they've known how deep it is, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a fascinating piece of water.
Hmm.
You know, there's so many kind of weird things. The water temperature will go below zero, but it doesn't freeze.
It,
Um,
is there
you
salt in it then?
There must be, yeah. Well, the River Ness flows into it, and the River Ness comes from basically North Sea Firth, Murray Firth into the River Ness. So yeah, there will be some salt. Uh,
Okay.
um, it also has a really weird thing of waves appearing from
That was
nowhere.
supposed to have created the crash of that jet boat. What was that, the
Yeah,
50s or 60s?
yeah.
Yes.
John Cobb, I think it's John
Yeah.
Cobb. Yeah, that was that, and they've only recently worked out what that is. It's because the loch is so narrow that the waves. It was probably from his own boat actually, because the
Hmm.
waves will go to the side. and then they'll come back.
Right.
So yeah, that could have probably what caused his accident.
Yeah.
But I've seen those myself, and they just appear from nowhere, and it is really strange. I haven't seen it in
Wow.
any other loch.
Oh, that's amazing. I've been to the shores of the loch, but I've not been on it. I did take a boat tour around Loch Ness. I mean, Loch Lomond.
Right. Yep.
And that was interesting. They pointed out the Duke's um, palace or mansion, manor house, and the Duke lived in the mews at that time, and the house had been turned into a hotel. And I got back to Portland, and about a year later, I started working at a place, and there was a delightful English woman who became, she and her husband became great friends of mine, and she spent the war years in that manor house.
Wow.
The Duke, the president's father, was married to Sarah's aunt, and so Sarah was born in a family castle. Um, and so half a quarter away around the world, I find a relative who lived in the historic places I'd just seen, and so that's always kind of fun.
Yeah. It's a small world, as we say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
She got
I mean,
rather
Scotland had
spoiled.
a lot of connections for, with the war, and a lot of buildings were used as hospitals or
Hmm.
headquarters, or um, in fact, Poole House was the Royal Navy headquarters for um, the Arctic Convoy,
Okay.
which was basically the one of the most dangerous routes that existed. And yet, you actually, if you were put on that route, your life expectancy wasn't very high.
How much of that was because of weather and icebergs and such, and how was that? How much from German submarines and
It was
such?
German U-boats. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
German U-boats. Yeah, they were basically picking off the ships.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it's. I mean, Winston Churchill actually stayed at Poole House
Oh, wow.
during the war. He was there, and so it's a fascinating place. And next year actually, Poole House will be having an exhibition around the Arctic Convoy.
Okay.
Yeah,
Fantastic. Because that was an important route for both groups, if I remember right.
yeah, it was
I mean,
used to
both sides.
move supplies and move things into Europe. But as I said, it did become, it was extremely dangerous.
Yeah. Um, it's incredible. Scotland is just such an amazing place, and it's been the part of oh, what am I trying to say? So many connections here. Tom Muir in Orkney. He works. I think he's an exhibit curator at the Orkney Museum, and he and his wife have a publishing company, and s- he's part of the storytellers and folklore tradition and such. And he's been on the show a few times. In fact, he's my next guest. And he sent me some information because I live at the end of the Oregon Trail, and it's where Dr. John McLaughlin, Scottish, um, retired after working for the Hudson's Bay Company, but set up the Hudson's Bay Company trading post and first mill and such. And I mean, we were founded basically by McLaughlin and the Hudson's Bay Company. And so he sends me these links about all these people from Orkney that were part of the Hudson's Bay Company and come over to North America. I don't think any of them came out where I am, but just the connections are pretty impressive, and especially from a relatively small country that doesn't have a huge population.
Yeah, I mean, it always fascinates me in the graveyards in Inverness
Hmm.
of the amount of connections with far flung places.
Yeah.
That people were out, they were out all over the world working, um, making a name for themselves.
Right.
So yeah, I always find it absolutely fascinating. Scotland, yeah, I mean, it's one of the things we brag about in Scotland is that so many things were like invented in Scotland.
Hmm.
Um, that I think there's a famous quote about from Winston Churchill about that. On that the fact that it's for such a small country, it's contributed so much.
Right.
You know.
Well, one of the things I remember, if I can remember correctly too, is that Edinburgh was actually considered to be one of the um, higher posts of education and learning for a while. It was a very strong cultural center and art center for quite some period of time. If, like I say, if memory is
Yeah,
correct,
no,
I
you're
mean,
you're
this
you're
was.
right. I think Edinburgh University is still um, regarded highly.
Yes.
Um, they actually have their own parapsychology unit.
Aha.
Mm, yeah.
I'm. Let's see. I know a psychic medium with a master's degree in real stuff, not the um, metaphysics, and a bachelor's in history. I wonder if they'd be hiring.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
keep looking.
Yeah. Yep.
I could
Yeah.
live in
Why not?
Edinburgh quite well.
Yeah, it's a wonderful city.
Hmm.
Um,
At least it
with
was in 1984.
yeah, no, it,
Since
it still is.
since I believe it. Since then, I've been south, just over the border a little bit. I only had a couple of nights, and there were some Neolithic scrawling or carvings and stuff. In a couple mounds I wanted to see. This was in Castle Douglas area,
Right.
and still incredible, and I loved it. But I want to spend about 3 weeks or a month up there going to the truly ancient sites. I
Hmm.
could spend probably 2 weeks in Orkney alone, not to
Oh
mention
yeah.
the Skye and then the mainland as well, and um, um, getting my own private tour guide. Um, but sorry, folks, um, but it's just so much there,
Yeah,
and
we're so much history.
there's some indication, perhaps, that even the big stone circles and some of the or some of the monolithic monuments started there and came down to England
Yeah.
instead of the other way around. I don't
Yeah.
think that's proven yet, but it's a pretty strongly backed theory, I think.
I think they believe that Stonehenge that is not as old as some of the sites in Orkney, and that Orkney
Right.
was probably actually the centre at one point.
Yeah.
Um, they did the main. I think it's the main stone altar,
Hmm.
the table at Stonehenge.
Right.
They've now discovered the stone came from Aberdeenshire,
I
I
hadn't
believe.
heard that.
Yeah, yeah, and I think they reckon Stonehenge was stolen from the Welsh. So,
Well, the
um,
bluestones came from Wales,
yeah,
and oh, one was it Parker Peterson. There was an one of the archaeologists. Now this is Time Team, but I think he was on a different program with this. It's claims to have found the mine where they were mined because they match up, and also where they probably were originally set in a circle. And
yeah,
so one of the theories is the people who started Stonehenge were from Wales, moving over, bringing their sacred stones with them. And they've proven how it could be done actually relatively easily when you consider. Um, and aliens were not involved in this process, folks. You want to tick me off, say, oh, it had to have been done by aliens, or sorry, the historian in me rebels. um, but I mean, just how that works is remarkable. And for me to have these really early societies seeming to really thrive up in places like the Orkneys, let alone Scotland as a whole. I mean, you guys are north a long ways, and the Gulf Stream helps, but I'm not sure how close to shore it is up there.
I'm not sure up there. I mean, it's the west coast of Scotland gets the Gulf Stream, and
Right.
you go to certain places, you'll see palm trees and whatnot. And what? Hang on.
Yeah.
But I can tell you,
But
we're in.
that helps further east a little ways too.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
but yeah, it's not quite as warm. Um, this side of the country.
No. And so how and why did so was culture thriving and developing up there so early? And I understand that places like Orkneys actually did have timber on them at one time, at least some of the isles did and such. It was cut down, especially by Bronze Age and by for farming and such. But if my memory is correct about all that. But still, I mean, the soil is thin in a lot of the areas. How fishing is good, yes, wildlife, but these are farming communities. And how and why they would have that advanced development there instead of an area that's a little more hospitable when you don't have central heating and electric lights and a few other things. That area during the summer, I mean, during the winter, must be pretty dark a
Yeah,
lot of the day.
yeah.
And so it's fascinating to me. And of course, now these are not Scottish people or Welsh people or English people at that point. These are one of the between groups of people that was in the area. But I don't know. I love it, and to me, it shows a lot of an ingrained hardiness, I guess, in the peoples of Scotland. But
I just I'm in awe of them, and it, I often say when I visit like Clava cairns here, which is Neolithic,
uh,
you know, what do these people know that we've now lost?
right,
That's what really fascinates me because they knew things that we have long since lost.
yes, and some of that was maybe not necessarily anything except a way to understand the world around them without what we would call science.
Hmm.
But some of that, I think, it was being in touch with the metaphysical aspects of life in a way that we don't remember how to reach. And it's something I'd like to know more about and delve more deeply into. Um, because I think that part of life is as important as the physical that we
Yeah.
live. And
Yeah,
as
as
a
a
historian,
paranormal investigator, sorry, um, it it's always kind of fascinated us. How can we communicate with these people?
right?
If we could communicate from these people, um, Clava Cairns, we believe as a guardian, but you don't get much out of the guardian. but we're not the only group to go there or medium to go there and say, yeah, there's a guardian here.
Hmm.
But again, we've never been able to communicate in a way that, we can learn things from
Right.
him.
And that's part of what I want to spend more time in a lot of these places doing. I've picked up something from every place I've gone, including in the Middle East and Turkey. Um, I haven't gotten to the oldest sites in Turkey, which make what we're talking about look like yesterday. But I haven't gotten there yet. I'm working on it. Um, but I would like to be able to have the time to spend doing, creating a deeper connection where I could do more communication. Because I think I could do it with more learning and more study and more time. Um, Maybe I'm fooling myself, but I'd like to make more of an effort. In fact, if I was rich, I have a whole PhD program in mind, to for myself, a private, just my own. I was thinking maybe Oxford, maybe University of Edinburgh. Um, I'd have to be rich because I'd have to finance everything and pay him a lot of money. So, not to mention travel, but
Yeah, well,
you got to
we're,
have
we're all playing
dreams.
the lottery,
Yep, you
and you
got
got
to
to
have
have
dreams.
dreams. You got to have dreams, indeed.
Yep,
Yeah, indeed.
yeah.
Um,
Oh, well, I
yeah.
probably have cut you off, but um, actually, let's go. What are some of the other? Is there anything else with this you want to talk about, or do you want to go back and more into depth with the Fae and some of that world?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to talk about. I mean, that side of it. I mean, and obviously, in Scotland, there's still a belief to this day. Um,
Hmm.
Recently, I was actually in a graveyard with a journalist, and there was another lady walking around in the graveyard. I thought, with a book.
Okay.
So I thought, I'll go and have a word with her. So we went up and spoke to her, and we got talking to her, and she was, oh yeah, I'm basically looking for some ancestors in here. But we started talking, and it was quite funny because with regards to ghosts, she was a bit, ha ha ha, I don't know if I believe or I don't believe. But the
Hmm.
fairies, 100% belief in the fairies, and yeah, there's still superstitions to this day. If you
Fascinating.
if you if you travel through the countryside in Scotland, you'll see farmers' fields, that perfect fields, but then there'll be a hill with long grass and weeds in that little hill, and it's like, why is that there? Why have you not flattened that and just grown crops over it? Because it's a fairy hill, and you
Right.
don't disturb the fairies. Um,
Mm-mm.
Sadly, there's also a belief that the fairies have actually left; they've gone, that they've had enough of the human race and moved on. But I like to think that they're still about. And you go to certain places, and there's a few places around Inverness you go to, and you just think, yeah, the wee folk are here, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're here.
Did the belief that they left come out with the Tolkien and the Lord of the Rings?
It
Because they
seems to
do in
be.
that.
I've read it in 18th century
Okay.
documents
Okay.
and
Then.
stories linked to Inverness and Tomnahura Hill here, the fairy hill that's in Inverness. Um, that they've gone, that basically they're sick of the human race and what the human race um, are doing. Yeah, the two fiddlers. I
Mhm.
don't know. Do you know the two fiddlers story?
No.
Okay,
I don't
so
think so.
this I do this on the Ghost Walk. It's the most there's there's quite a few stories about the fairies in Tomnahurich Hill.
Okay.
So Tomnahurich Hill is on the west side of Inverness. Um, it is now a graveyard, a cemetery,
Mm-hmm.
um, but for hundreds of years, it was shrouded in folklore.
Okay.
There's tales of sleeping giants underneath it, armies underneath it. Um, but probably certainly the most famous story is the fiddlers of Inverness. So two fiddlers basically came into Inverness from a local village, and for what better term, they were busking. They were trying to
Mm-hmm.
make some money,
Right.
and they'd had a pretty lousy day. They were just packing up on the town side of the bridge that goes out to the west over the River Ness that flows through Inverness. And
Mm-hmm.
as they're packing up to think about going to the pub, they see a brightly dressed little man walking across the bridge towards them. And he basically says, "Hey boys, how would you like to make a bag of gold playing at a party tonight?" So they look at each other and go, "Hi, damn right we would."
Uh-huh.
So they head out west with this little man, but they start to get concerned because they're just past the last house in Inverness. Where's he
Mm-hmm.
taking them? So they go, "Excuse me, but where are you taking us?" And he says, "Oh, we're here." And they find themselves on the side of the hill, but there's a doorway. They enter and find themselves in a great fairy hall where the fairy queen herself is holding a party. So the fiddlers, they basically drink and eat and play all night long. They don't see the little man till the next morning when he suddenly reappears and tells them, "You need to leave." He hands them their bag of gold. They turn to thank him, but they find themselves back out on the hill. No door. So they walk back into Inverness, but straight away they're going, "This looks different. There seems to be more houses." They get into the town itself and they see that the people are dressed differently, and they're pointing and laughing at the appearances of the two fiddlers. So scared, the men head home. When they reach their village and they reach their houses, they find strangers living in their houses. So they head to the church. In the graveyard, they find the graves of their loved ones who might have been dead for 20, 30 years. They head into the church where there's a service taking place, and as the congregation turns round to look at who's come in through the door, as they come over the threshold, both fiddlers turn to dust. They'd been in the hill for 100 years
Wow.
because fairy time is different to human time. And
Yes.
that's just one, that's the most famous story, which is called The Fiddlers of Tomnahurich.
I love that one. Lawrence put up another one.
Yeah,
Oh, that's the link to it. Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
And for anyone coming to visit Inverness, you will not get a better view of Inverness than climbing to the top of Tomnahurich Hill. You get really, really good views. And the Bran Seer, who was, I suppose, the Notre Dame of the Scottish Highlands, he had
Uh-huh.
a seeing stone, a hag stone, where he would see the future, and he actually had two predictions about Tomnahurich. He said that one day the spirits of Tomnahurich would be under lock and key. In 1850 or thereabout, the cemetery opened, it was fenced off and under lock and key at night. He also said that tall ships would sail west and east of the hill of Tomnahurich, and the
Now, when was
Caledonian.
this?
He would have been 15th, 16th century, probably.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And hill of Tom, the tall ships would go west or east of the hill. In the 1800s again, the Caledonian Canal was built just on the other side of the hill.
Wow.
So he was pretty accurate.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's interesting. How was he with other predictions?
Quite a few. He seems to have got right. The other one, I tell him my ghost story, which I absolutely love, is he said that basically loose women bearing flesh would run amok in the streets of Inverness. And I always say to people, if you come here on a Friday or Saturday night, he got that one right as well.
Yep.
He predicted the Iron Horse, the train.
Okay.
He said that fire and water would run under the streets of Inverness, and
That's true.
that's been interpreted as gas and water.
Yep.
So yeah, he got a lot. There's what's called the Eagle Stone, which is an old stone, an old I think it's actually not possibly is it a Pictish stone that sits in Rossshire on a hill in Rossshire, and
Okay.
he predicted that if it was to fall 3 times, the whole valley would flood. It's fallen twice apparently. It's
Okay.
now been cemented into place to prevent it falling again. But
That
yeah,
makes sense.
unfortunately, he didn't manage to predict his own demise. Um, so basically, he was asked by Lady Seaforth to connect and see what her husband was up to,
Hmm.
and he was very truthful and told her that his husband was having a whale of a time in Paris with plenty of different women.
Hmm.
Well, for she flew into a rage, and he was accused of witchcraft, and he was actually put to death in a tarred barrel. But before he did, he cursed the Seaforths,
Uh-huh.
and the curse came true
Okay. First of all, he was put to death in what? A tarred
in a
bottle?
barrel of tar and lit.
Oh, oh,
Yeah,
ow.
yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
now I
yeah.
get it.
Burnt to death.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
And how did the curse come true?
He predicted basically the demise of the family,
Okay.
and that basically the sons would all die out and have different ailments, and he was spot on.
Wow. What were there any daughters that married and kept
No, I think the
part of
line
the
actually
family?
ended. I think the line actually in the end died out completely.
Yeah. Okay. Because I wasn't sure.
Yeah,
Sometimes, going through a different name because they'd married differently.
yeah,
But wow, that's impressive.
yeah.
Uh,
You can buy a book on the brand Seer. It's quite a fascinating read. He's a gentleman that's kind of shrouded in mystery as well. There's a few arguments of who he was, where was he actually from. There's a few people trying to claim that he was kind of born here or born there, but yeah,
right.
he's a fascinating character.
Yes, he is. There's just so much that I need to live to be 1,015 different lifetimes to be able to learn all of it or to go to all of it and see it. And I don't think that's going to happen. Um, I think the odds are against that.
Maybe.
Yeah. So,
So they do say we come back until we learn everything we need to learn. So who
yes,
knows?
but that's on a soul level,
Yeah.
not my intellectual interest. So, um, I do those kind of readings for people, actually, but
Maybe you'll be haunting all these places.
that could be.
Yeah.
Now that
That's a
gives
good
me
theory,
such a
actually. I
great
like that.
idea.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
You might have even given me an idea for a book.
Hmm.
Um, hmm.
But we definitely believe that spirits come back to places they enjoyed in life.
Oh
They
yeah,
don't, and they can choose where they go.
absolutely. They all cross over, or if they don't cross over, it's because they want to stay. They know how.
Yeah.
They know where to go. It's not up to us to tell them. Um, I haven't run into a trapped one yet. I've run into a lot of entities that, it's part of who they were when they lived here. There's there's a part of the personality, even intellect and such, but it's not their full soul or anything. That's gone where it needs to go. But yeah, I've run into a lot of them that visit or just hang out for a long time because they like it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I agree. Um, and I agree as a medium. It's okay. It's my experience. Could I be wrong? Absolutely. Try to prove it. Right. But you know, I mean, even with you looking at harder scientific evidence, it's it proves anomalies. It proves there are things that are happening that shouldn't be happening. Um, you get a pretty good understanding how, what, why, where, all the rest of it. But there isn't a whole lot of solid take it to court proof.
No.
You know. Um,
No, I mean, we're always learning. We're always, you know, I had a light bulb moment the other week, which was like anybody who knows me knows that I detest pictures of orbs. Okay.
Good for you.
If one thing that makes my blood boil, it's orbs. And I blame at hands up, I've seen some of the stuff that we posted early as a group, and I'm like, oh my god, we posted that. But you live and you learn and whatnot.
Right.
But the other week at Strathpeffer Pavilion, we had a really interesting experience. So it's the pavilion's an old dance hall. It's a Victorian dance hall. You've got the stage at one end, big dance floor, and then there's a balcony at the far end of the building.
Okay.
Um, so we're up with some guests on the balcony. There's a lady from the trust who'd hurt her foot, so she's wearing a boot. So she was just resting, and she's resting at the side of the stage on the dance floor, sitting down. Now, my son Craig has recently joined the team, and he has a bit of a gift.
Okay.
And he basically says, I, "I've just seen somebody walking across the floor," and at the same time, she's going, "So down we go." And she says, "I've got pictures of orbs to show you." She says, "I had this feeling." She says, "I felt something coming from behind me, and it walked right past me across the floor." So I thought, wow, you've just felt what Craig saw. We then looked at our orb pictures, and they were orbs, they were dust.
Mhm.
And then I said, hang on a minute. Something had to pass to disturb that.
Right.
So actually, now I'm not going to record here and saying I still think the majority of our photographs are garbage, but
Right.
on that occasion, I thought, hang on a minute, that shows there's been a disturbance. Something has altered the flow and disturbed. So that was a bit of a light bulb. I've got to pay a bit more attention to orb photos going forward.
Why are right?
Yeah,
Why are they
yeah,
moving? So
yeah,
yes, it's still not the orb is a spirit or an entity, but the entity is causing that orb to the dust to fly to make that orb
yeah,
appear on a camera.
yeah, yeah.
And
I
I'm
know.
open to them too because I've seen them in, with these eyes, um, on um, bushes in the forest, trees. One I was on a Bigfoot excavation or expedition, and two of us saw it. There were thousands of, like if you're on a gravel or dusty road and you turn the headlights on at night and you see all these dust particles in the headlight beams.
Hmm.
It was like that, only they were coming from beyond where we had started. We were on a gravel road, but there wasn't any wind. There weren't any cars. We had enough light from the sky to see comfortably and safely. Um, but these little, little round pieces of light came down past us and kept going. So this wasn't dust we'd made. And on the way back, they started out from down and came back up.
Wow.
And I tend to think that's more along the lines of the Fae, along with some of the little larger pieces, as well as the face I saw coming out of the foliage with the rather interesting hand. And um, I have seen them physically a few times, including 2 miles from where I live,
Wow.
and in the middle of the day. And so I believe that they exist because I've had those physical visions, not just the psychic ones.
Yeah.
And I know it makes me sound like a total idiot, but you
Not
know,
at all.
it's what well, I used to think people that believed in them were, And then I thought, well, wait a minute. Maybe these beings of myth, I don't like to call them people. I think they get mad at me that. Maybe these aren't really myth, but they're interdimensional. And my understanding is basically that's what they are. And that's part of why they can have, you know, a community inside of a rock or in Iceland, they'll build roads around rocks or driveways around rocks that are fairy, and their
Yeah.
fairies, their elves are full size, human
Hmm.
size. Um, and so it makes sense to me, and I know, but I also saw Bigfoot that expedition that same time. Actually, that same night, it was on the way back. I saw him on the way down too, but I wasn't sure. On the way back, he made sure I could see him. And we had other interactions with him. And, but I spent probably 30, 40 seconds, 60 seconds looking just straight at him walking by in front of the tree line, and there was no wind, the trees weren't moving.
Wow.
And I thanked him. I hope I did. And I figure he wanted me to know they exist. And we swore ourselves to secret, not to reveal to the general public where we saw them. And I've kept that. I've taken one person up there who had no idea where we were and doesn't live on this continent, and and that's it. And it's somebody who wouldn't ever dream of revealing a location, even if this person knew it. So yeah, there's something there, and I give them a great deal of respect.
Yeah. Bigfoot fascinates me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and well, I live in Bigfoot country actually. Where I saw them was less than 2 hours away, and the forest on Mount Hood, the park rangers and a friend of mine who's an archaeologist have had all kinds of experiences of them there, and oh, that's less than 50 miles.
Wow.
I think it's just the mountain range right at the edge of the valley. Um, and then there's the Malala River corridor, they call it, which is supposed to be a really highly active place for Bigfoot and UFO both. So, and I did see a UFO there, but I mean, like huge, round, lights, up and down, like lots of
Right.
4 stories, moving around funny, not fast, and then settle down behind a hill. I was out on some recreational property my family owned, and with a friend from, we were juniors or seniors in high school, and we'd just go out there late at night sometimes and talk. We didn't smoke, we didn't do drugs, we weren't drinking. There was nothing to create a hallucination. We weren't tired, and we both saw it, and I thought, oh, I bet I could find that, because it's not my normal, but you know how things work when you
Yeah.
live in an area. And then by the time we got in the car, we thought, oh, we might find it. So we turned the other way and went home.
Good plan.
Yeah, I know people that want to call them down or to communicate with them, and I'm going, you might reach their version of Dr. Mengele. What are you doing? Yes, you might reach Mother Teresa in their version, but you don't know.
No.
So, um, no, they can do what they're doing is stay away.
Yeah, it's another fascinating subject. Fascinating. Lynn and our group's a big fan of the UFOs and space in general.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw one years ago when I was a kid,
Okay.
um, and it was like just an orange shape, but like a saucer shape, but orange, it was like almost like a ball of fire, but in the shape of
Of a
a
saucer.
saucer type thing, and it was just hovering.
Yeah, balls of fire don't do that.
Yeah, I know.
Uh-uh. Oh, that's
Um,
fantastic.
yeah. So yeah, it was as I said, but I think you've got to. I mean, we're going about, oh, you're crazy if you believe in Nessie, or you're crazy if you believe in fairies. But I'm a bit like, well, that'd be a bit hypocritical. I believe in ghosts, so why is that any different? It's not.
Yeah.
It's all the paranormal, it's all the unknown, it's all absolutely fascinating. I mean, I don't focus on UFOs. As far as I'm concerned, I've got enough work with ghosts without looking at anything else. So,
Right.
um, you know, uh, my brain can only handle so much. So it's I kind of just focus on the ghost element. But
Right.
it's not to say that UFOs don't fascinate me. As I said, Bigfoot. I would happily I'll watch anything on Bigfoot. I just think it's a fascinating subject.
We,
Um,
you and Lawrence get over here.
mhm.
I have a haunted guest room. Um, most people don't have a problem in it. It's only scared a few people. Um, and I'll take you.
That sounds like a plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like
Um,
a plan.
yeah, and I know exactly what you mean now. I'm a super skeptical person, so I need to see it to know it's real. I need a physical, hard, I can't explain it away experience.
Yeah.
And that's why with Bigfoot. But I always wanted it to be real, and I believed it was possible. Know UFOs are real, but they're unidentified. Are
Mhm.
they outer space? Are they interdimensional? Did my picture just flip?
It
On the
paused for a
video?
second.
Okay. I don't know what they are. Are they an interdimensional being? Are they us 5,000 years in the future?
Yeah.
Bleeding through? I don't know. Um, I'm open, but I need solid proof, for it to be an alien or a whoever. So,
Yeah. No, that makes sense. It's the same. It's
yeah.
with ghosts. What are ghosts? And it's just like, well, it could be this, it could be that. Then again, it might be this.
Yeah.
Um, and when you start going, when somebody asks you that question, you go, "Have you got 20 minutes?" Because it's going to
Yeah.
take 20 minutes. Um, but yeah, it's fascinating, and we've become kind of fascinated with the whole time element and the
Yeah.
fact that are they actually still in their time? And we're in our time, and the two times are just coming together. There's, as you say, there's like a bleed through, and we're actually seeing them in real, or we're not seeing, well, don't normally see them, but we're picking up on them in real time, in their time, and they're picking us up in our time. But it, the only problem with that theory is we don't appear to have found anybody from the future yet,
Right.
and there's no reports that I'm aware of from the 17th, 18th, 19th century, or even 20th century of reports of ghosts in strange gear with equipment,
Exactly.
unless we're the aliens.
Yeah, but they
Hmm.
didn't have aliens in those days. The
No,
18th,
I
19th, 17th century.
suppose no. No. So no.
Um,
So yeah, that's the one thing that kind of puts a bit of a blot on that one,
yeah,
that theory.
but I don't think it's just one or the other either. I think there's so many different possibilities.
Yeah, that's kind of what we believe, in our experiences, that there's so many different kinds of hauntings, basically.
Yeah, and I use the word entity as a generic term instead of me trying to put a label on what's what.
Hmm.
Um, because, and that's just me, and I know most people don't do that, and I'm not thinking saying anybody should. It's just my way of not trying to put a label on something I don't. We have all these things that we say. There's this kind of haunting and this kind of haunting, and a ghost means this, and this is this. Well, that's only because some people said so. There's absolutely nothing real solid behind that, I don't think. At least not that I've seen. Maybe it's there and I just haven't seen it. That's very, very possible. But by doing this, I leave it open and they can tell me what they want to tell me. And they can tell me who they are. I don't want to presume. And I don't like being put in a box and labeled, so why would they?
No, exactly. Yeah,
You
it's
know?
treat them as you would treat any fellow human. That's always been rule number one for me.
Yeah, I'm even a little bit more respectful to them than I am the human. Some humans, I'll get in some people's face a little bit more than I will an entity, unless it's one of these that you occasionally you'll get the one that's trying to be a big bad evil type dude, and you just go, "Oh, come on, really?" And they go, "Slink off." But it's oh, I don't know. It's an interesting reality.
Yeah,
Then I love it.
yeah, that's why we all do it.
That's right.
Yeah,
I like people and I like to get to know them. It doesn't matter that they quit breathing 500 years ago or 5,000 years ago.
yeah.
Um, I like the other beings to get to know them too if they want me to. I won't ever force myself. And when they tell me to leave, I tend to leave. If I've got a group that's paid to be there or to learn, I'll explain what we're doing, ask if we can stay till we're finished, give them that little bit, because people have paid for that. Um, and then we'll leave. But I acknowledge and do my best to remember it's their place, not mine.
That's
So
a good way to think.
it keeps me focused on being respectful and appropriate. And it's so easy to get caught up and forget that. So I don't know. It makes sense to me. Now, we've been going for an hour and 20 minutes. I know you've got a lot to do. You know me, I can talk to you all day. Um, but I don't know what kind of time you're in. If you want, we can end now. If you've got more
I've
you
got a
want
wee
to
bit
add,
longer. If anybody's got any questions or whatnot, I can do a wee bit
yeah,
longer. Yeah,
great. Now Barry, I think sounds like he might be on your team
he
with
is
some of
indeed.
his comments. Okay,
Yeah,
and then
another fine gentleman, which we will need to get to come on. Barry is he'll hate me for using the word expert, but he's a bit of an expert in runes.
on which ones?
Runes,
Oh,
Viking runes.
fantastic.
Yeah,
Oh, that would be
um,
wonderful because I don't
yeah,
know anybody who has much of a background with that.
yeah. So Barry is a very knowledgeable and lovely chap, and we definitely need to get him on it at some point. You two together at some point, whether it's on here or on our channel.
Okay.
But definitely.
Barry, on my personal Facebook page, it's William Becker. Um, or my professional Facebook is Para Insights. You could send me a message. Um, my personal page right now, well, it's got a lot of music and a few comedy and a few things, but it's also got a whole lot of news about um, politics and elections and stuff that have gone on. So please get a hold of me, or Liam can give you a way for you to contact me if that doesn't work. Okay. Um, thank you. Great idea. It will be a fourth night. Oh, very good speak.
4 hour night. Yeah, I can have
Cool.
the night off.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. But
But yeah,
um,
Barry's a great guy, and he's been investigating with us now for a couple of I think it's a couple of years now. So um, and he's become quite a whiz on the dowsing rods as well. But he said, I'm not going to spoil it. We're talking about his experiences because he'll tell them better than you. But he's had a few kind of personal and unique experiences, shall we say, with the rods um, as well. But yeah, Barry is a great bloke. The whole team are great, actually.
yeah.
Wonderful bunch of people. Very lucky.
Yes. Well, it's a mutual thing. You've helped draw those people to you because of who you are, and you've made the correct choices. Um, and who you bring in the team. So it's a good mutual um, peace and a bit of serendipity or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I
So
think we've all got our own kind of strengths. We'll bring something different, so it's really
yeah,
good. We're like a big family, and we've got each other's backs. So it's yeah, it's a really good bunch of folk, and we've been lucky this year. As I said, we've done some amazing locations. We did the oldest house in Inverness this year,
oh,
which
tell me
was
about that one.
yeah. So that dates back to the 1500s. I'm not going to try and tell you the exact date off the top of my head. Um, it's Abertarf House. It was at one point in the ownership of Lord Lovat, and it was an estate office, but it's been used as a family home. It's been used for shops, offices, all sorts over the years. It was due to be demolished in the 60s, but the National Trust of Scotland saved it. So
Excellent.
it remains, and we were lucky to go in there. Um, so Kyra was and Richie were with me on that occasion, and Kyra's investigator medium. She picked up on a blonde-haired girl, about 12-year-old, on the first floor. We went down at the end, and we did a ghost box session
Hmm.
on the ground floor, and we picked up a female voice in there. Hard to say. We think it was trying to tell us a name, possibly Susan or something else. EVPs are really weird. You'll hear something different to me, and yeah, if I go and tell you what I'm hearing, you go, "Oh yeah, I can hear that." Most of the
Right.
time, so it's a bit weird, but definitely a unique female voice that was out with anything that was going on with the spirit box. So that was really interesting. And the next day, the National Trust confirmed to us that a blonde-haired girl is seen quite regularly in the building.
Fantastic.
So that was really good. And a black Labrador dog.
Wow.
Now, what's really interesting is many years ago, with another medium, we investigated a building further up the road, the Dunbar Hospital, which dates back to the 1600s.
Okay.
And he picked up on a black Labrador dog.
Oh, that's
So we
interesting.
wonder if it's the same dog.
Yeah, it's a really good question. Now,
Yeah.
would that have been part of the same estate at one point?
No, I don't think the Dunbar was ever in the ownership of the Frasers at all. So I don't believe it would have been.
Okay.
But it's just along the street.
Yeah. Oh, and
Um,
I don't think they fenced their dogs in those days, did they?
oh no, they wouldn't have done.
No. I
No.
only question because dogs and livestock aren't always a good combination. We've had cases when I was a kid where the a group of dogs, they'd be nice family pets, usually bigger German shepherds, things like that. Great dogs, but they'd put together in a pack sometimes and go chase sheep and
Yeah.
different things. Sometimes chasing the sheep to death. And um, where I live, if you have things killing your livestock, you have a right to kill the
Same here.
dogs.
Yeah,
Yeah,
same here.
and I know I don't send me hate people, but when domestic pets are killing people's livestock, you need to keep your pet at home, or the farmer has a right to take care of his livestock.
Yeah.
So, um,
Yeah,
uh,
it's just fascinating that it seemed quite unique to pick up on,
yes,
and in two different locations, years apart, but on the same street.
no,
And Kyra had no previous knowledge of what had been picked up years ago.
are is that a common dog there, a black lab?
Well, that's the other thing. I need to go back and see how far back Labradors as in existed, because I have a funny feeling they actually didn't date back that long. So, um,
Yeah, and would people different places have a habit of having different kinds of dogs often, depending on what they need them for and stuff.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so even if they were around, would they have been in Inverness much? It could be that it was 20 years ago.
yeah, it could well be. Easily could be. I mean,
I
two
wonder if it, I
historic
wonder if,
buildings.
yeah, I wonder if one got hit on the road or something in between, or had lived in between the two sites and had died.
I think I need to do it. I'm going to go. I'm now going to have to go and do a bit more research on this one.
Sorry about that.
No, 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 no. It's actually quite and see what we can see if we can pick anything up that
I
that
want,
that makes.
I want to know.
I'll
I'm
let you
sorry. I
know.
keep. Yeah, good. That's what I was going to say. I don't mean to keep talking over you, but the way it's working, sometimes I do, and I apologize. I don't mean
No,
to.
I'm just as bad. Likewise.
Okay. Um. Oh, geez. And you see, you've got places there where people were living hundreds of years before where my country was a country, or and in a lot of cases, you don't have to go back that far before we actually had settlers, Europeans on the
Hmm.
continent. Let's see, Jamestown, I think, was the first, and I think that was early 17th century. Not Jamestown, Roanoke. Um, I have to go double check all my dates, but you know, you've got tons of buildings that are still in use that predate European settlement on this continent. Actually, even a few that predate the Vikings here. They didn't last very long, but yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
it's unfortunately in Inverness, most of the old buildings are gone. Um, in the 1800s, especially once the railways came, Inverness had a bit of wealth, and the whole town's kind of centre was rebuilt. And then in the 1960s, there was, for want of a better term, cultural vandalism, where old buildings were pulled down and concrete boxes were put in their place.
That's right.
Um, I'll say no more on the subject because I'll go on a rant. But when I do
I'll
my
join you.
walks, I have a folder with the old photos, and people are normally disgusted. I
Yeah.
mean, they knocked down the house where Mary Queen of Scots stayed.
That's
They knocked it
insane.
down. Yeah, yeah.
Now, were these buildings in such bad repair they couldn't have been saved?
That was part of the argument that was used.
Okay.
But whether or not they could have been, they wanted to widen the road, and basically they went for it. There, one building still stands in that area,
Hmm.
and that was because it was the newspaper office of the Inverness Courier, and the lady who was the editor refused to sell.
Good for her.
And that building still stands to this day, but it just sits on the corner, with these big concrete boxes all around it.
Ugh. And we had so much of that here as well. All the grand mansions in my town are gone. Now, the oldest house is, well, no, it isn't the oldest. It's the oldest still existing, and that was 1843. We weren't,
Mm.
that's before we were actually incorporated into a city by about a year. And McLaughlin's house is still here, although people wanted to demolish it because it had become a hotel for Chinese workers. It had become a house, as a friend of mine says, of negotiable affection. Um, and when it was going to be torn down, anyway, a group that I'm a member of, I wasn't in 1909 when this house was saved and moved to its current location, but a lot of people thought, get rid of it. And but McLaughlin became known as the father of Oregon,
Mm.
and he really was. And um, he was supposed to kick us out. We're supposed to be, according to the Hudson's Bay Company and the English Crown or the British Crown, we're supposed to be speaking English, not American. And during the War of 1812, it was uncertain for a while. Now, we had trappers and traders out here. The Native Americans, of course, were here, but as far as the Europeans, the country goes, this was not even a territory yet of the U.S.
Right.
Um, but still, that's what the program was on the British mind. I kind of wish it would have happened. I didn't say that out loud, did
You might have.
I? I've wanted to move to England since I was a little kid. And the first time in my life I ever felt at home was the first time I landed at Heathrow. I was 27 years old, and that was the first time I really felt at home. So, there's a resonance there, even though the British part of my family left in 1635. So it's not like I have recent familial ties there, but it's just always been a draw.
Yeah, it's amazing how certain people are drawn to certain countries. They go to that country, and it's almost like deja vu
Yes.
for them. Um,
Yeah.
I've met quite a few who love Scotland,
Hmm.
and feel that actually Scotland is where they should be. and where they feel happiest.
Yeah, and I can understand that. I have run into several of my past lives traveling around to ancient sites in the UK. I have run into past lives in Egypt. I Turkey is one of my biggest draws and calls. I love that country. I'm not crazy about their leaders, and I won't say any more than that. Um, I have good friends that live there that I visited. I went to their wedding, um, and the history go ba- is they were the beginning of the Mesopotamian societies. They were the top of the Fertile Crescent that everything else kind of flowed down from. And I haven't been to those sites yet, but it's part of that history that really calls me in those sites. And I have a feeling I'll stumble into past lives in some of the places I just haven't gotten to yet. Um, because I do find a lot of the draws to places that were past lives.
It kind of makes sense, doesn't it?
Hmm.
I
Yeah,
think it's a fascinating area, past lives and things like that. It's something. It's the one thing that I've been tempted to go and get done is to go and get somebody to regress me and see what past. But at the same point in time, if I was a horrible, nasty person, do I really want to know?
well, you wouldn't have been for all those lives.
Yeah.
Um, and you're more than making up for it now because you're the complete opposite of a horrible, nasty person.
Well,
Um,
thank you. I try.
you succeed.
You haven't seen me driving a car.
Uh,
Uh,
I would think anybody in Scotland driving a car would be in the same place. Um, Driving over on that island can be quite an experience. I've done a lot of it. And when you have cars that are this wide and roads that are this wide and they're two-way streets, and you can't see around the corners, which are everywhere, and in places the speed limit's 60, um, it's an interesting experience.
yeah, it has its moments.
Yes. The motorways I'm pretty comfortable on, but
Yeah, problems
even
up here.
some,
We don't really have motorways.
no, you wouldn't. Um, I've driven on two-way streets in Cornwall where the brush was scraping both sides of the car.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
And so, yeah, that's interesting. Um, but what I was going to say is, I don't do regressions because I'm not a hypnotist. I do readings.
Hmm.
And when you have a time that we can chat, I would love to do a past life reading
Oh,
for
I'd
you.
love that. Yeah, definitely. I'll
Yeah,
take you up on that. Thank
great.
you.
We'll set it up. And um, oh, Zoom, I think, can record it. I don't know if Messenger can record it. But we'll find Skype. I think can record it. We'll find a way of recording it if you want to, as well.
Perfect.
Um, but I'd like very much to do that if you.
Yeah, no, I'll be up for that. I'd definitely be up for that.
Okay, good,
Yeah.
good. How are you holding up?
I'm okay. The eyes are getting a little bit.
Okay. Do you have anything you want to add now? Lawrence has put all the contact information out for you, for us, for you. Anything else you want to?
I mean, yeah, I mean, obviously, we're most active on Facebook. So if people are interested in what we're doing, Facebook's the place to go. The ghost walks, if anyone's going to be in Inverness, get in touch. I've done ones this year for folk from Florida, Toronto, um, and several other places. In fact, I've still got one more private one to do this year yet. So by all means, get in touch. I love talking about the area and taking people around. So, um, you get a bit of the history and as I said, the old graveyards in the sort of city centre
Right.
of Inverness. The oldest one goes back to the 1100s, so it's the oldest grave is 1604.
Wow.
The oldest gravestone,
Yeah.
I should say, is
And
1604.
I can vouch for Liam's walks because a good friend of mine from the Portland area was took one um this last year,
Yeah.
and she was very pleased and impressed, and she actually was really sorry she didn't have more time to spend in town. Um but she didn't have much of a choice with that.
No, but there's never enough time.
Right.
That's the problem,
Right.
and it's the same when people come up. People are traveling to Inverness and they say, "Mate, I've got a day or a couple of days in Inverness, and the surrounding area. Where can I go?" And it's like trying to narrow it down, and you really right. What are you interested in?
Yeah.
And take it from there. Because we did do, as I said, we had a group at the same time. Actually, we had a group of Americans over. The team actually, a couple of team took a couple of days off work, and
Okay.
we took them to various locations. So things like Clava Cairns,
Okay.
Culloden Battlefield. We took them to Clutie Well. I think I've spoken about the Clutie Wells before.
Yeah.
So they're old healing wells. So there's a few of them
Oh.
around.
And I haven't been
Um,
to those or to Clavacurn.
yeah. Well, you need to get yourself across to get to both of them.
I know it. I know it.
Definitely. But yeah, as I said, people get in touch. We're hoping to do more video work next year.
Okay.
I did do over on for the trendy people on TikTok a few years ago. I did quite a few graveyards walks in all over the area.
Okay.
So very old graveyards. But we're hoping to do some more next year. But we're also hoping to hopefully do some more of actually our investigations and film some of our investigation work as well. So yeah, it's another busy year for us next year. We've already got some locations booked in for next year as well. So we're
Fantastic.
going to be in Oban. We're going to be back in Pool U again. Um, we're in talks about a few other ones. We'll be doing a sleepover at Strathpeffer Pavilion at some point next year as well, which is a first for us to
Okay.
take the public on a sleepover.
That's going to be quite an experience.
Oh yeah, yeah. We're really looking forward to that because it's a very interesting kind of quite active building.
Right.
We've always got something when we've been there,
I-
but
Is
we've
it
never
set?
spent a night there.
Is it set up with? Um, is it used for people to stay in overnight now?
No,
Okay, so you'll have
no,
to
no.
bring in, or people have to have cots or air
Well,
mattresses or
yeah, they'll need to
sleeping
bring their
bags.
own sleeping
Yeah.
bags and whatever.
Yeah.
So it's something that we kind of talked about with the community trust there, and we thought, yeah, that's a great idea. Let's do it.
It has hot and cold running water in bathrooms.
Oh yes,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, because I mean, some kinds of buildings, it's just there isn't much.
No, this one's used as a music wedding exhibition.
Oh, yeah,
So it's got all that.
great.
It's got all
It
the kind
might
of
even have a shower someplace.
mod cons. It's even got a bar and a cafe.
Well, that's good. I mean,
So,
mixing spirits has its advantages sometimes.
yeah, we wouldn't do that on an investigation.
No, but
we've
afterwards,
yeah. Oh yeah, afterwards. Yeah, 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 yeah,
uh, a
yeah.
nightcap before turning in. I'm not talking about getting drunk, but a nightcap before to help you sleep isn't always a bad idea.
Yeah, I'm not sure we'll get much sleep, but
Yeah,
we'll see how it goes.
sounds good.
But it's been an absolute pleasure, William, as always, speaking with you, and thanks for having me on again.
Oh, thank you so much. The pleasure is definitely all mine. I will get links to you either later today or tomorrow, so we can spread it so people can watch after the fact, because
Okay.
that's where we get most of the views. And everybody who has watched, thank you all so very, very much for joining us. And we'll see you next time. Okay, take care, all. Bye bye.